Tim indicated that he had last seen Karen the previous night between 7 and 7:30 p.m.
Parmenter says he stopped by her house for just a few minutes and left when Karen called her dad.
Tim told us that he left while Karen was still on the phone with her parents, and that was the last time he ever spoke with Karen.
The night of October 10th, she called my dad and wished him a happy birthday, and that was the last time that anyone spoke to Karen. Karen was 39 years old, a vibrant, beautiful woman, my baby sister. She just was a very happy person, outgoing, always smiling. Had the type of smile and bright eyes that would just draw you in.
Karen was a really funny person. She was always laughing. She was very intelligent. Karen loved diving, the beach, the Caribbean, the palm trees. She loved Florida.
Sheriff's deputies canvassed the neighborhood looking for clues, working to calm a frightened community.
As soon as the news gets out about there being a homicide, neighbors and people in the area will be concerned.
Oldsmar is a town of about 14,000 people. It is a bedroom community. People live there because it's a nice place to live. Oldsmar doesn't see a lot of violent crime, and neither does the neighborhood where this took place, Bayside Meadows.
At the crime scene, forensic experts carefully process every possible piece of evidence.
One of the things I thought was interesting is that there was a pizza box on this countertop.
Looking at the receipt next to the pizza box showed this pizza was delivered at approximately 9 p.m. that night. This box was taken, along with numerous other items, back to the lab and processed for fingerprints.
Karen had to have been murdered sometime after 9 p.m., an hour and a half after Tim Parmenter says he last saw her alive.
He went by her residence and left around 7:30 p.m. that evening, going back to his house.
After Tim got home, he played video games with his roommate, George Solomon. Then George took off.
Tim told us his roommate left to go up to his girlfriend's in Pasco County. He invited Tim to come up there if he had nothing else to do.
At first, Tim said no. Then, around 9:30, he changed his mind and decided to go.
Tim called his roommate, seeking directions to come up to Pasco County.
He spent the night there and then returned home in the morning. Tried to call Karen on several occasions and could not get a hold of her. And that is when Tim said he decided to drive to her residence to check on her, found her door ajar, went inside the house, and saw her body on the kitchen floor.
Hours after the 911 call, detectives pour over the facts of their case. At least 16 stab wounds to Karen's body, indicating extreme anger. A pizza receipt showing the murder occurred after 9 p.m. And a mysterious clue. On the wall, the letters ROC are written in blood.
One of the biggest questions was, what does ROC mean? Is it abbreviations?
Could these 3 letters help police catch her killer?
Love heals.
She got me. She understood what, I guess you would say, what made me tick.
Love destroys.
It was like a pressure cooker, steaming, stewing in my head, constantly going over what I heard.
You've got an unstable guy, a woman who's treating both of them in a way that nobody should be treated. It's just a matter of time.
Love hurts. Brand new Scorned, Crimes of Passion, Friday at 9 on Investigation Discovery.
There are stories that stay with each of us, stories that you think could never happen. But I listen to every detail.
Only one sneaker leaves that kind of impression.
And ask tough questions.
If you didn't put that shell casing in the trash, who did?
That's why this season, I'm taking you to the scene of the crime and coming face to face with the stories and people we won't forget.
On the Case with Paul Azan, tonight on Investigation Discovery.
Perfect towns,
Perfect lawns. Perfect people. Perfect crimes. True stories of when the American dream becomes the nightmare next door. Brand new Nightmare Next Door, Wednesday on Investigation Discovery.
Airline customer service agent Karen Pennell is found stabbed to death in her townhome in Oldsmar, Florida.
Karen Pennell was 39 years old, a very attractive woman who had done some modeling in the past. She was very well liked by the people who knew her.
She was supervisor at American Airlines for years. Very smart lady. And we just instantly became friends.
Karen worked as a customer service agent. She did that job, I think, mostly because she loved to be around people. She had a fairly small group of friends that she hung out with a lot, mostly her coworkers at the airline. Karen was married for a number of years to a great guy named Jeff. For whatever reason, they just couldn't keep it together, but they had a very good marriage for a long period of time.
The most compelling clue in the case is found on the wall near Karen's body. Neatly written in her own blood are the letters R-O-C.
Is it some unique word that she shares with her family? Is it some type of code word?
Karen's boyfriend, Tim Permenter, provides the answer.
During our initial interview with Tim Permenter, he did bring up the name Rock.
We learned that Karen had a previous boyfriend named Rock. We learned that Karen had some problems with Rock and that they'd had a very rough relationship.
Rock had some issues with drugs. Karen was totally against drugs. I think Rock and Karen's relationship was a little bit rocky, shall we say, towards the end, certainly. The drugs did make him violent to some degree.
Police records indicate Rock has a history of past run-ins with law enforcement.
We had responded on 3 occasions to the residence of Rock and Karen Pennell for some domestic disturbances.
I just kept telling Karen, get out, get out. This is absolutely insane. Why are you dating this man that's doing drugs, beating up on you? Karen realized that it was time to break it off.
Tim told us that Rock had been calling her and bothering her, and she made a statement to him that if Rock calls, I don't want to talk to him. He's bothering me, harassing me.
Finding Rock becomes the top priority.
The day after the discovery of Karen Pennell's body at her residence, Detective Holbrook and I met with Rock and his current girlfriend.
Rock was surprised that we were there, and more surprised that Karen had been murdered. When Rock learned that his name was written on the wall, he was kind of taken aback.
Police interview Rock and his girlfriend separately. Their stories match. Rock had been in Northport, Florida, 2 hours away, on the night of Karen's murder.
While we were there, we had a crime scene take fingernail scrapings, swab the fingers of Rock. We also were able to look into his vehicle and check some of his clothing and his shoes that were at the residence. We checked Rock against fingerprints lifted from the residence of Karen Pennell.
We did not recover any fingerprints belonging to Rock from the scene of the crime. He had left some messages on her phone previously because he still had a piece of furniture at her residence.
Rock advised that he had not called her recently and that he had not been calling and harassing her.
A check of cell phone records confirms Rock's story.
We were also able to get cell phone records for Rock, which showed him using his cell phone on cell phone towers on the night of the occurred down in Northport, Florida.
He provided us everything we asked, and we did not see that he was being deceptive with us.
With their prime suspect in the clear, detectives refocus on the blood evidence left at the crime scene.
The way Karen was murdered with a number of stab wounds, there was a lot of blood spatter that had gone in that area, specifically on that wall area.
One thing stands out.
In a room that was so chaotic with blood spatter and cast off, papers on the floor, boxes knocked over, I just remember looking at the word rock and thinking to myself, this doesn't fit. When you looked at the letters, they were the same height and width. For somebody who apparently, possibly was on their last dying breath, it just seemed so perfectly written.
On the victim's hand, you just had a little bit on the fingertips. None of it was running down her hand, which would have been consistent with how the name was written on the wall.
The other significant fact was how high it was written up on the doorway. Why not write it on the floor? We measured from the bottom of the letter R to the tips of her right fingers. It was well over 4 feet. For somebody who had suffered serious trauma, it didn't seem probable.
And there's something else that's suspicious.
The blood spatter was dried at the point in time that rock was written on the wall.
Which means that there was a time lapse in the time that the incident occurred and the time the word was written.
For her to write rock on the wall, if that was legitimate, you'd have to assume that the person who did put all this time and effort into obviously killing her would have left her alive and able to write on the wall, which just makes no sense.
This led us to the conclusion that someone came by at some point after Karen was killed and added the rock on the wall.
Closer examination of the bloody letters confirms the theory.
I noticed that each letter started out heavy in blood, and then at the end of each letter, it was a lot lighter, which indicated to me that in order to write each letter, the source of blood had to be replenished. So, for example, if Karen had indeed written this herself, she would have had to dip her fingers in the blood to write the letter R. Then she would have had to re-dip her fingers in the blood to write the letter O. And then re-dip her finger in the blood to write the letter C.
And there's one more critical fact. All the blood is on Karen's right hand.
In talking to friends and family, we were able to learn that Karen was exclusively left-handed.
I told them she was left-handed, and she always made, these comments that left-handers make about how much smarter they are and have a higher IQ, so I knew for sure Karen was a left-hander.
If Karen did not write the letters on the wall, then her killer must have.
We believe the person who killed Karen not only knew her, but knew of her past relationship with Rock. Based on this, we focused on a core group of friends and family.
Ex-boyfriends, ex-husband, and again, there was nothing pointing towards any of these people other than the fact that they had previous relationships with her.
Her ex-husband had been down in South Florida on a diving excursion during the time of Karen's murder. We also spoke with several other friends and eliminated them in similar fashion.
With little to go on, detectives start rechecking stories and double-checking alibis. Then, a break in the case, a critical clue hiding in plain sight.
Sometimes affection shows its darkest